Hi everyone. Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to our live session on leading change. My name is Cherice Job, and I'm excited about what we will be sharing in the next 30 minutes. Shouldn't be more than 30 minutes as we share some tips about leading change. So let's get into it. Let me tell you a little bit about myself for those who don't know me. My name, as I said, is Cherice Job. I am a leadership coach. I am a trainer. My main area is personal growth and professional growth for leaders, coaching leaders in these areas because I believe that leaders truly need to develop themselves both personally and professionally to be effective in the workplace. And this morning, I want to take you through some tips about leading change so that as a leader, you can be effective as you go through the many changes that can happen in your organization. All right, so let's get into today's session. So, first of all, what is change? We hear a lot about change. What is change? And change is an act or process through which something becomes different. Simple. It is something was once one way and then it is changed into something else. And that is what change is all about. All right. So this sounds great. Okay, we go through many changes, whether it is in our lives, we go through many changes as it relates to our families, our situation, sometimes even in the work environment, especially, it is important to understand what change is about and how that change can impact your organization, and how you lead that change is so important. All right. And notice I'm saying leading the change and not just managing the change. How you lead that change is so important, because if it is that you just managing the change, that means you're just reacting, you're just doing the basic things daily. But when it is that we're talking about leading change, it means having a vision. It talks about motivation. It talks about navigating through the entire change process. And so that is important. So what are some of the different types of organizational change that happens? When we're looking at organizational change, it's important to understand, well, what type of change may happen. Sometimes in terms of organizational change, you may have in terms of leaders changing, maybe a change in the leadership in terms of who is leading, change in terms of a particular manager in the organization, or maybe a different company took over that particular organization, and so things have changed drastically where now that company has to go based on not on the culture of a previous organization. So things can come over as pretty much a lot of it can come over as chaotic because no one is sure how to deal with the change. Change in location, right? Some organizations change in location, whether it is a location within that particular country or maybe changing location to another location in a geographic or maybe another country. Those things can also have a significant impact on the organization. I'm seeing persons coming in. Good morning and welcome to our live this morning. Happy to have you. For those who are on LinkedIn, those who are on Facebook, those who are listening on YouTube, thank you for joining me this morning in this live. So we're looking at leading change, and so we're just getting a little bit of the background of the different types of change that can happen, just a few of them that can happen in organizations. So the next one is change in strategy. Sometimes the change in strategy, the way how the organization wants to do things, the way how the organization wants to achieve its goals and objectives, that change can have a significant impact on the organization and what happens. So that change in strategy can, cause concerns to your employees, to your stakeholders, and so forth. Rebranding, something like that, rebranding the organization. That can also be a major change. How we do things, what we're wearing. I remember working for an organization, and the rebranding meant new uniforms, and some of the employees were reacting to the new uniforms, how they fit, how they look, and so forth. Changing, rebranding also means a new vision, a new mission statement, and so forth. So all of these things affect the organization in some way. And then downsizing. This one here usually causes a lot of concern, a lot of fear in an organization when you hear an organization is downsizing. And so that is another change that can severely impact an organization. And if not managed well or led well, it can lead to employees reacting negatively, stakeholders reacting negatively. And you can think about the different types of changes. Feel free to list them in the chat, the different types of changes that organizations can go through and how they can impact the organization. So what happens when people hear change? All right. So I said usually there may be some level of chaos, there may be some level of concern, but there are some major reasons why there may be some level of chaos and concern. Because when persons hear change, it automatically has play on their insecurities. Persons start to wonder, well, what does this change mean? Would I be able to perform, especially in our world now where there is so much as it relates to artificial intelligence, persons being replaced by robots and so forth. These things can make persons think, well, is my job secure? Is it that am I able, will my qualifications still be relevant to this change in the organization? What does the change mean for those stakeholders who are outside the organization? How would it impact them? If it is that an organization leaving, if persons would have been receiving gaining employment or receiving benefits from that organization, being in that community, what happens now that this change happens? So first thing is insecurity. There could be some level of insecurity as persons hear about change, which leads to fears and doubts. Am I going to have a job? Am I going to provide for my family? Am I going to be able to move up? Maybe it could affect my pension. And a lot of these things start to happen. Is my job still relevant? Will my job be made obsolete? What will happen? What will happen with the environment in terms of persons, new companies coming into our community? Would there be an impact, an adverse impact on the environment and so forth? Hi, Dr. Rajkumar, good to have you on. And so these things can really impact, create fear, create doubt, create, some level of strain on persons who are impacted by the change. And then there's resistance to change. So therefore, the insecurity, the fears, the doubts can lead to some level of resistance to the change. So what you would see is persons may decide, what, I am not sure about this change. I'm not sure how it's going to affect me. I'm going to react to this change. Let's call the union reps. Is this in my best interest? Is this change going to cause me to have to work longer hours? And so I'm not working past 4 p.m., and these sorts of things. And so it is important that we understand how change affects people, how change can impact persons. And that's where emotional intelligence comes in, where you are now identifying with how change can impact the persons who are around you. Hi, Suzanne. Good to have you on. So let us continue with 5 tips to leading change effectively, which is what I wanted to focus on for this very short Facebook Live. 5 tips for leading change effectively. So the first thing I would always suggest is share the vision. People like to know what is going on. Persons don't like to be in the dark. Persons don't like surprises when it comes to their future where they're not in control. Persons don't like it. And so one of the first things that you need to make sure is share the vision. Why is there a change? Is there a change that is it that the change is something to build the organization? Let persons know so that you can have buy-in in terms of what is happening. Is this change going to build in terms of technology? Get persons excited about the vision that the organization is having concerning the change. When you leave persons in the dark, it leads to confusion. It leads to persons holding on and struggling with it, and then you notice persons start to leave the job, look for other jobs, because they're thinking, okay, this change is going to have an effect on the organization. Hello to those who are joining in on Facebook as well. Good to have you. And so the next thing, so share the vision. Let it be clear. Let persons know, hey, this is going on, and this is how we can build. Of course, you have to be wise in terms of how much you share as the leader of the organization, but ensure that you share enough that persons feel like, okay, they're a part of this. Maybe even receive feedback from them of how we can make this change something that can be effective for everyone. This is important. All right. So also share how the change is not only going to benefit the organization, but how is this change also going to benefit the employees, the stakeholders, those who are impacted or who can impact the organization? How is this change going to impact them in any way? All right. So this is also very, very critical, because now persons want to know, well, what's in it for me? In this change, in this organizational change? Is there going to be an increase in salary? Are we going to, is this move going to affect my family? Am I going to be moving away, moving to a further place? Is there anything that is going to help compensate for what this change will bring? These are some of the things that persons would want to know as they go through this change. How is this going to benefit me? What's in this change for me? All right. And it is that is critical. But then what needs to happen is that you need to also identify the appropriate leadership strategy to use for the change. All right. This is also, and this should be done at the beginning. This here is something that you need to plan for before the change even starts. How are we going to lead this change? Are we going to use autocratic style of leadership, where I'm going to just tell you exactly what's going to happen, full stop? That may not be the right. Are we going to bring persons in terms of the change, and have different focus groups helping persons to work through the change? Are we going to have a coaching strategy with this change, where we are going to ensure that persons, we hear what persons are saying, we understand what, we empathize with them, we understand, and we incorporate that in how we are doing this change? What leadership strategy are you going to implement for this change? Now, it's important to note that with leadership, the leadership strategy you may use for one situation may not be the same leadership strategy you will use for another situation. And so it's important to understand what is the most appropriate leadership strategy that you would use in this particular change. Sometimes there's an urgent situation, persons, there may be an urgent situation that needs an a quick response. You don't have time for democratic. You have to be autocratic. This needs to happen now, so that, or sometimes it is because it's urgent. There's no time. You just had to make a decision and move forward. But then there may be times where you have to mentor persons and coach persons so that they can be built up into what it is that needs to happen with this change. But then, in addition to all of this, now it is important after you've understood, after you've shared the vision, now you've understood, you've shown the employees what is in it for them, how can they benefit, how would this work in their favor, all right, so they don't all run away. And now you have identified the leadership strategy. Okay, what is the appropriate leadership strategy for this change and how it can be most effective in terms of building your employees? It is important to take time to educate your employees. All right, and educate persons around you, not just your employees, but in terms of the public and those who are impacted by the change. It is important to educate them. What do I mean by educate them? Show them, teaching persons, training persons on the benefits of the change. It is important to have sessions, whether it is a webinar, whether it is for the public, or whether it is training sessions for your employees, whether it is sessions where experts come in to share with the public about what the change is about so that they can understand what it is that is happening. For example, if there's a move to sustainability in your organization, the benefits of sustainability will need to be pushed out to the persons who are impacted so that they understand fully, okay, this is what is happening. They're trained in how to respond to the change so they feel on board with what is happening rather than being left in the water to drown. Okay, so these are some of the things that are critical for leading change effectively. There are many things, but I'm just highlighting a few things that you can use, you can implement in your organization as soon as right now to really help build and to do your change, to lead your change effectively. And the final thing that I want to mention is the importance of evaluation. Evaluation, feedback, that is critical. Many times organizations fall short in that they fail to do the feedback stage. All right. The feedback stage says, okay, I am now looking at ways. I know that nothing is perfect. So how can I tweak this so that we can be effective? How is this system for leading change working? What is the reaction of employees? Am I seeing an increase in employee turnover after I've done all of those things? Am I sensing some silence, some fear in the employees still? How can I alleviate that fear? How can I move forward as a leader? How can I help this company to move forward, this organization to move forward in a manner that is most efficient, most effective with this change? All right, and these here and this evaluation is something that needs to be constant. It needs to be constant in terms of the change that is happening. All right. All of us would have gone through all sorts of changes when it came to COVID-19 and the pandemic, and how that pandemic would have affected our lives, our careers, and so forth. And many organizations had to move to make major changes. Even organizations that may not have wanted to change had to change. Those who may have been ignoring change for years had to change because of the pandemic. All right, and with that, one of the things that I saw is the importance, or how important it was to manage that change, because persons were scared, because persons were losing their jobs left, right, and center. Persons were getting sick. Persons are still dealing with the fact that in terms of children being sick and they have to go home, or working from home, now you have hybrid situations, and there are some there are some statistics that are showing that now persons are actually liking working from home, but they want that balance of work and home. They don't just want home alone or work alone, but they want the balance. But that change came with a lot of fear, and it was important for leaders to manage that fear throughout that entire pandemic. Now, we don't want to wait until a pandemic comes again to manage what is going on in our organizations. But what we want to do is have proactive leaders, who are ready to say, you know what, let's put a system in place so that if it is any change happens, whatever it is, whether it's a crisis, whether it is a voluntary change, it is something that we manage well. Right? It is something that we manage well. So it's important that we take time to manage change effectively. Okay, it's important that we take time to manage change effectively. So if you are able, if you can answer this question, what are some of the challenges you have observed when it comes to change? Feel free to put it in the chat during this time or even after the webinar. What are some of the challenges you have observed when it comes to change? What are some of the things that you may have observed in your organization, and how did you all deal with that change in your organization? It's good to share these ideas so that persons can understand. Okay, they're not alone. Sometimes as leaders we think we're alone going through this, and and I've been in leadership for over 20 years now, and all sorts of change and how people react to this change. It's really something else. So I want to encourage you. If you have ideas, if you have suggestions, feel free to drop it in the chat. So I really want to take this time to thank you all for joining in this very short live session about leading change, and I hope that this really helped you in some way to really build in your ability to lead change, maybe get some tips. I see someone is putting fear to adjust. Yes, Ms. Sherman, fear to adjust. Yes, that is a major fear that persons have when it comes to change. How am I going to adjust to this change? Especially if they're in their comfort zone, if they're in their comfort zone, and this is comfortable for them, the unknown can make persons very, very shaky when it comes to change. They don't like the unknown. So thanks for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So as I said, feel free to put in your comments, your questions, your suggestions. And from time to time, I'll be having these webinars, just sharing some nuggets just for 30 minutes or less, 25 to 30 minutes, about different topics as it relates to leadership, because we really need to ensure that we build our leadership abilities. And leadership is not just for persons who are in organizations. We lead in our homes, we lead in our schools, we lead even as we interact with others, we lead. All right, so leadership is for everybody. And I also want to take this opportunity to invite you to my upcoming free webinar. All right, and this is on Monday, the 24th of April, 7 p.m. All right, and this is Effective Leadership with Emotional Intelligence. I would have mentioned throughout this live about emotional intelligence, and I want us to go more into it as we share about effective leadership as we lead with emotional intelligence. A lot of times persons think that emotional intelligence is something that is for the weak, but now this is something that is growing, and it's becoming a leadership skill that is necessary, a people skill that is necessary in order to lead, in order to be effective in the organization. So join me for that free webinar. I'm putting it in the chat now, all right, where you can be a part of this webinar on effective leadership with emotional intelligence. All right, so feel free to join in for that webinar on the 24th of April from 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. I will also be giving some coaching tips to see how to understand whether you are being effective with your leadership abilities. All right. So feel free to join in. Feel free to register now. You have to register to be a part of this webinar. So feel free to register for this webinar when you can. All right. Register now. It's not very long to register. Okay, so thank you very much for being a part of this. I see someone also put change is inevitable but could be frightening. Yes, change is inevitable but could be frightening. And that change can lead to, chaos, confusion when persons don't know what is going on. All right. So thank you again for joining. Thank you for the greetings. Thank you for the little tips, the sharing. Really appreciate you joining in this morning for our webinar. Stay tuned for more webinars, more tips as we continue to talk, to continue the conversation on leadership. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.